So the all-important question, I've sold everything that we own. How much did I make in order to exit the UK? That's the topic of today's video, and I've been waiting to be able to put this together because I actually just really wanted to get to the end of all of the sales so that the numbers that I could present to you were complete and accurate, and that's where I'm at today. Yvonne and I went into Glasgow on Saturday to meet some friends, and I'm going to share that in a forthcoming video. But as we did that, I had one last package to take to the post office with me on Saturday afternoon. Our router from home, I say that in a Scottish accent, right? If you were saying it in Dutch, it would be router. I only know that because I used to work for a company that made routers, and the Dutch division used to say it all the time, and it made me giggle. We're talking about the new router. That's my Dutch accent. Nobody freak out. So, we've sold all of our possessions, and to do that, it took 7 months. Started in January and completed on the very last day as we moved out at the end of August with the last sale, and I did it across a host of different platforms: eBay, Vinted, Facebook Marketplace. Those were the key three that I was utilising in order to get rid of everything. And the all-important question then is, how much did you make? How many sales was it? Let's cover that. Now, before I start on this topic, right, talking about cash, talking about things that we've sold, I just want to put a little disclaimer here to state that I recognise I'm going to walk you through things here that you would probably be like, well, I don't own that, I haven't got that to sell. But in order to be transparent and share with you where money has come from, I can't also be ashamed to then tell you things that I owned in the first place that I've sold, right? It's a catch-22 for me here. If I don't disclose where money's coming from, people will have question marks. And if I do tell you, then people will say, oh, well, it must be nice to have this or have that to be able to sell it. So before I go into the details of each of these categories I'm about to sell, I just want to at least highlight that yes, I own these things, I've bought these things over many years, and I've had the ability to then sell them and generate money. However, in your circumstance, I just want you to at least be able to appreciate that there might be money sitting around your house that you haven't thought about, or you never thought you would be able to sell any of these things and generate money out of them in the first place. Or maybe you're just curious, like, okay, so how much does something like this sell for? But again, I recognise that everybody watching this video will not necessarily fit my circumstances. Okay, right, let's get started. Let's start with a biggie. From the age of 16, I was involved in dance music. I had two friends who I ended up being in a band with that motivated me to discover this kind of creativity around music. And that world took me into being a DJ, took me into making records. And at the beginning of this year, I had a DJ set up at home, turntables, mixer, a desk, speakers, all of the things that went together for me to do a performance. And I had that set up in my home. I've had it for some of it for many years, and other parts of it had been bought maybe over the last 4 or 5 years. And so I took the decision that I was going to sell all of this DJ equipment. Again, you know, passing of my father last year really changed my views on how I was thinking about life. And I looked at this equipment and I could see money in it, and I could see that it was probably time to sell some of it because new versions would be coming out, and the opportunity to sell it now whilst it was still at a high price before it gets replaced with something down the line, those were all the things that played into my mind. And this was a big decision because many of my friends know me as being this person involved in dance music, so to suddenly rid it of from my life seemed to them like, woof, this is a big step. And so this really felt like a good place to start for me. And again, it was just equipment, it was just technology, nothing that couldn't be bought down the line if I felt like I wanted it. So how much did I sell it for? That's the crucial question. Well, I put a listing up on eBay and a person came from the Midlands, from Manchester area. He was celebrating his 50th birthday and he bought it all from me. Took pretty much every bit of kit that I had available, and the total sales price for all of that was a grand total of £10,000. So my turntables, my desk, my mixer, my speakers all went for 10 grand. Okay, so were you expecting that? More, less than what you thought that equipment would sell for? Again, for me to find a buyer that was willing to take that in one go and not have to do multiple listings and go through the whole eBay fear of posting things away and everything else, there was the position between selling it to one person and having it all gone versus having to break it up and maybe try and achieve some more, whilst also recognising I have a whole house to go and I have to start somewhere. So that is the very first amount of cash that came in, 10 grand. So was it a tough decision to sell all of that DJ equipment? Yes, of course it was. Massive part of my identity, how I've made friends over the years, a life that it kind of provided me. Of course it was tough to see it go. However, if you're going to realise a dream going forward, sometimes you have to sacrifice other things in order to realise that opportunity, that dream, and that's what we were trying to do. So what comes next? All right, another juicy one, the records, the record collection. As I talked about in other videos, I had close to 2,000 records split across really two collections, one being of rock and indie music and the second one being of dance music that I'd acquired being that DJ over those years. And so I found two buyers who were willing to buy the collection split across those two genres, and the crucial question was, how much did I sell it for? Well, much like the equipment, £10,000. £10,000 split across the two sales to get rid of 2,000 records in one go, two goes, without having to go onto eBay listings and everything else. Now, I researched this, spoke to multiple buyers, spoke to multiple companies, had it all priced up. There would have been significantly more money in selling it individually, but time is the part that was against me, because we knew we had a target of leaving the house by August, and therefore trying to get rid of it inside that window was key so that it's not having to go into storage. So it's gone. People in the comments will say, oh my god, that's madness. Well, all of these decisions could be viewed as madness, or they could be viewed as smart decision to just get on with the next part of your life. So that now takes the total to 20 grand. 20 grand in savings from two major parts of my life that I've acquired since 16 years old, now gone for this project, this new lifestyle. Next up, let's talk about the Vinted platform. I used Vinted to try and sell some t-shirts that I'd bought over, again, about 30 years of attending concerts, bands that I had seen over those years. Every show I had attended, I'd tried to buy a bit of merch from, so I had boxes and boxes and boxes of t-shirts and hoodies and all sorts of other things. So I decided I would try and use eBay or Vinted to sell it. Now, as well as selling those t-shirts on the platform, I also managed to sell shoes, trainers, Yvonne's shoes, old jackets, all sorts. And I think I probably made somewhere in the region of about 60 to 70 sales in the end before we had to effectively move out the house and relocate to Glasgow. And the total that I pulled in, and I'll show the screen here for you on Vinted, was £1,600 in the account from basically used clothes resold on the site. Next up on the list is Facebook. Now, we used the marketplace to sell a lot of furniture. We sold our bed on the very last day as we were moving out. We sold TVs on there. We managed to sell a bike turbo trainer that I had. What else? A bike, actually. So many people came to the home. It was definitely challenging to sell on there because there's so many time wasters, but I have to say the people that I actually sold to seemed super nice, really genuine, and just I actually found a lot of satisfaction in selling our things to people that I knew were going to like a good home. Does it make sense, selling your own possessions? So from Facebook Marketplace, it was mainly cash. Put the cash in the bank on Saturday, and in total there was £3,000. So from selling a handful of second-hand stuff, somebody messaged me the other day and was like, who buys a second-hand bed? And I thought to that, have you never gone to a hotel? Have you never slept in another bed? Like, what's the issue with buying a second-hand bed? But I guess that's just some people's perceptions of buying stuff, right? But for me, I'll tell you what I've learned from Facebook Marketplace at this point. If I ever have to come back here to the UK and start again, I would not buy anything new. I would buy everything online second-hand because there are some bargains out there, some absolute deals. So £3,000 in cash from the Facebook Marketplace sales. Next up on the list where we were able to generate some income was eBay, and probably where I managed to sell the most amount of items. There was 127 sales through eBay. Not always plain sailing for sure. Had my challenges with selling the heated bed mattress that we had, which I think I had to sell 3 or 4 times before I was ultimately able to complete the sale and a happy buyer. And I've had some tech issues with some things that I've sold, but I've managed to resolve everything that went on, and been on the platform since about 2011 in total, so I've built up about 1,000 feedback credits, or whatever you really call it, on the platform. But 127 sales in total, and that generated £12,200. So by far the most successful platform from a revenue and sheer volume of sales. Definitely Vinted has its kind of limitations on how much people are willing to sell for stuff, for items, versus eBay, which it's a faff to use. The whole shipping thing is a pain, getting your money is a pain, the pushback you have when something goes wrong is completely on the buyer's side. I had a turntable that I sold for a couple £100 that was just absolutely broken to bits when it arrived at the buyer. I've no idea if any of that was legit or not, so I just had to take things on the chin and keep moving forward. But £12,200 from the eBay platform. And to bring this to a close, there was one last area where I was able to bring a little bit of money in, and that was the deposit for the house that we had rented. Yvonne and I owned a property in East Kilbride from when we first got together in our late teens, early 20s, and we then sold that flat 10 years later and moved to Glasgow. We had a flat in Glasgow that we owned before we relocated to England, and we sold the flat in Glasgow after 1 year of being in England because the management of it, being landlords, was just an absolute faff. Just a nightmare to manage. It wasn't for us. So we'd sold that flat a year into living in England, so we've been in England now for 13 years before we're now here in Glasgow. And so I had some money to get back from it, from the landlord, and I'm pleased to say they paid that really quickly, no issues. I think we had looked after the property like it was our own, and we got £1,800 back from that deposit. And that is the roundup of what we've generated from selling everything in our house. Again, I can appreciate that everybody will have different things that they've acquired over the years, different perceptions of what you can make from selling all of this. But to recap, £10,000 for the DJ equipment, £10,000 for the records, 1.6k on Vinted, 12.2k on eBay, 3k on Facebook, and 1.8k from the house rental deposit that we got back. That brings our total to £38,600. What's your thoughts? I will await the feedback in the comments, good or bad. you can let me know. But in order to make this next step, you have to take a step in the first place. And that's what we've done. Thank you so much. Thank you to all of the channel sponsors who are part of the membership crew here on my channel. Your names are on screen now. Have a great day, everyone.
Lift going up.
She's so Scottish.
4th floor. Doors opening.
The lift is so Scottish, it's not even true. Listen to that voice. 4th floor.